Okay, Nana.
We left off, I guess, in the early 60s, but I want to go back and recap a little bit in Denison. I left out some of the points that I'd like to bring in, especially about the kids when they were in school. For one thing, it was quite a feature for Tommy when he was a senior in high school. He and a group of boys kind of bamboozled their mamas into cooking a meal once a week. So they had 5 mothers and they had a gourmet meal every day from school. Anyway, it seemed all the boys, loved that. And also, I need to tell you a little bit of history about our, our career. Worked for the railroad for 5 years, starting in 41, 42, and worked until 47. At that time, he started at home on his spare time. He learned the watchmaking business and how to fix clocks and how to fix jewelry. And in 1955, he moved to Sherman and took over the repair department in a jewelry store there called Orendov's. He stayed there until probably 64. Then he went to Durant and worked in another jewelry store for a couple of years. So our career was kind of, anyway, I wanted him to stay with the railroad, but he wasn't happy with it. So anyway, we had a jewelry store in Denison from 1955, which is Barnes Jewelry, until 1964. When we more or less phased it out, we sold it, but then our inventory, we got it down so low that we just let a man take it over, practically. So when he went to Durant, he stayed there about a couple of years, and then he went to Hutchinson, Kansas, the beginning of 1966. And this was with 2 of the men that worked in Gibson's jewelry department. And at that time, Gibson's was opening several stores, and they farmed the jewelry department out to different people. So they contacted him in the summer of '66 and wanted to know if they were opening 6 stores in the Dallas area. And they wanted to know if he would come down and work with them as a watchmaker and sales and whatever. So on Labor Day of 1966, and of course this was after Tommy had graduated from high school in Denison in 1959, Karen in 1961, and Mike in 1963. And at that time, Michael, I need to go back and do a little history about Michael's football career, because he didn't get a scholarship, even though he was a good football player in high school. He wasn't as outstanding as some of the others. Of course, I thought he was, but he went to Tishomingo his first semester. Well, this was way out in the boonies, and he didn't like it at all, because you couldn't get, it took you several hours to go there by bus. It wasn't very far on a car, but at that time you didn't have a lot of...
Did Tishomingo contact him, or did he contact Tishomingo?
I think Tishomingo contacted him, and he got a scholarship up there. So he said, "Mom, if you and Daddy will help me go to Arlington, I'll earn a scholarship." So the second semester, we paid his tuition, and he came down to Arlington, Texas, and went to UTA. Then it was University of Texas at Arlington. I think it's called a little something else now. But he went the rest of his 4 years there, and in his last year, I believe it was in anyway, I can't remember what game it was, but he intercepted a pass and several, made some good plays. So at the end of that time, the St. Louis Cardinals called him, and they drafted him into the St. Louis Cardinals team in 1967. So after we moved down here on Labor Day in '66, he informed us that December the 23rd of '66 he was going to get married. Well, as everybody knows, and he didn't think, but of course his bride chose that time. December is always a busy time for jewelers, and it was hard for us to, work it in. But anyway, we did. So he ended up getting married December the 23rd. And then that year after his football career, after his college term was over, he went to the St. Louis Cardinals, and he played for them for about 67, 68, and 69. So that was the end of his career. Actually, Michael was a good football player, but he wasn't mean enough to. The preacher in St. Louis said Michael would knock a fella down, turn around, and help him up, and he said he was just too good a person to be a mean football player. Anyway, let's go back to when we first came to Richardson. We finally found a little house, and we moved over on Timber Lake. And we brought, of course, Tommy and Karen and Mike were away from home then. All we had was Yvonne and Jan and Debbie. And I may have said this and I may not have. Anyway, Yvonne was born October the 7th, 1950, and Jan October the 10th, 1952, and Debbie May the 25th, 1955. My oldest child, Tommy, was born May the 28th, and my youngest one, I ended with Debbie, born May the 25th, but 14 years apart. So when we moved down here, they just taught, Yvonne was a sophomore, and she just moaned and groaned because we had just ruined her. She was I guess a big frog in a little puddle in Denison, but down here she was a little frog in a big puddle. Anyway, the schools were so much bigger. Everything was more expensive down here. But after they went to school, I guess 1 or 2 semesters, you couldn't have moved them back to Denison. And I worked for Gibson's for a while. I had started my real estate career in Denison in 1960. I got my real estate license.
Come on, Nana. This is, I'm going to have to charge this battery.
Okay.